once again. So, The Dragon Prince released recently on Netflix, and I watched all of it, and I want to talk to you about what I think of it, my favorite parts, what they did wrong, what they should do better, what they did absolutely fantastically, and there's going to be a lot of spoilers because I watched the entire series before deciding to make a video, instead of some of those people that watch the first episode and immediately get a video out just to get the views. So, you've been warned, okay? If you want to click away, now would be the time to do that. So first things first, the story. I liked it. It's very high fantasy. I get some Dungeons and Dragons vibes from it. I kind of get some Fire Emblem vibes from it also because there's a war happening, two factions coming together, gonna clash heads. The premise, it's neat. The only issue I have is that, well, it's not really an issue. It's just hard for me to believe because there's one human that stole a dragon egg that caused the humans and the elves to divide, and I'm like, okay, history can be a fickle thing, but are we really blaming all the humans for the act of one human? Cause And they kind of addressed that in the story. The king was like, hey, yeah, there was one incident, but then we did something to them, then they did something to us, so we did something to them, and back and forth, and now there's just too many things that's happened that we just can't forgive each other. I'm like, okay. Over time, yeah, I can see that. If it's just this one thing, easily resolved. Give him that one bad guy, and bada bing, bada boom, we're all good. So I'm glad they addressed that. What I can't get over is that it started off with the trope of this epic lore exposition, super story that takes up like a few minutes of just, here's the background of our entire land and the epic wars that's happening, and here's my super epic narrator voice as I talk through this entire part. And they didn't do a super narrator voice like I just did, but you still get that feeling. It's if you replace what the person they had with a stereotypical narrator voice, it'd work. The funny thing is I like that. It's a trope, it's a bad trope, but I like it. I feel like it really sets the mood more than anything else. I know it's supposed to be there for telling you the background of the world, but really it makes you feel more than you are exposed to the story. Let's talk about the characters. So, my favorite character, Raela, just because she's like the most driven, she's the most competent. She's not an idiot like sometimes Caelen is. And, she's an elf, of course, top tier. And, of course, she has a Scottish accent, top tier. And sometimes Caelen is a complete idiot, and that can sometimes rub me the wrong way. But Raela is always there to be like, hey, you're an idiot, stop. And I'm like, thank you, Raela. Thank you. Caelen, I like Caelen, don't get me wrong. He's dumb sometimes, but I like him. The thing with these shows is that you need to have growth with your characters. You need to let your audience, let the viewers see growth from them. They have to have a personal arc. And in this one, you got a slight bit of that. You had the entire group come together and say, hey, we need to trust each other more. Yes, I know there's a difference with our histories. I know there's some bad blood between us, but hey, we're trying to do something bigger than ourselves. We really need to work together. And I'm like, that's pretty good. I like that. There's also the thing with Caelen and Raela sitting down and talking, having a heart-to-heart, and Caelen saying, hey, I've been a mess up my entire life. I don't really do anything well, but then you called me a mage, and that just felt right, and it made me feel validated, and I'm like, that's cute. I like that. A lot of these shows should have more of just two people talking and having an honest conversation, because that's where a lot of the growth happens. That's where a lot of the connections between these characters happen. Ezran's probably the weakest character out of all of them. He's cute. I like him, but and in terms of like a character, in terms of story, he learned that he could talk to animals. Wow! There wasn't any serious growth with Ezran, and they can explore that later. Of course. I mean, this is only 9 episodes for a season, which is strangely short. The one character that I thought they did surprisingly well was the king, Caelen and Ezran's dad. Because they make it very clear, hey, the king's gonna die. There's assassins coming for him. It's pretty clear. And the issue I was afraid of was, okay, so we're gonna see him for like 1, maybe 2 episodes, and he's gonna die, and we're not gonna really care. It's just gonna be a thing for Caelen to be like, oh, I'm so sad. oh my gosh. And Ezrin, I guess I should probably, they're his son. But the way they did it was, they didn't really sit down and make you to where you really liked him. They just let him talk and say, hey, I'm a king, I have to do this, this is my responsibility, I'm scared, I don't like what's happening, but I have to do it. And I respect that a lot. In the end, I didn't really have that strong of a connection to the king, but I did feel for him. In the end, just him saying what little he said, I felt like I sat down and just talked to a stranger, and he just talked of his woes, and I'm like, dang man, I'm sorry, you got it rough. The one thing about this show that I didn't expect was they do a good job with Chekhov's gun. At least I'm pretty sure it's Chekhov's gun. Like at first you have Ezrin open the painting and he has jelly tart on his fingers and he leaves some handprints on the side of the frame. And then you see, oh, Raela sees that, she follows them, and then, oh, okay, Claudia sees that also? Oh, didn't think you'd use it twice, okay. We see it again with Caelen falling, in like the exact same episode, falling, and you see the letter from his dad fall out of his backpack, and you're like, they're not making a big deal out of that. They're not zooming in and going, whoa, this happened, this is gonna come back later, you better make a mental note of this. No, it just fell. And if you noticed it, hey, good on you. And then I thought it wasn't going to be that big of an issue because I didn't do that zoom in, but then it did. They brought it back and were like, hey, this was a thing that happened. Now it's being used against him. What I really didn't see coming was the fight scene at the lodge when Raela got her braid shot off, and then Soren and Claudia came back and Soren saw it and then said, hey, can we use this to track them? And I'm like, really? You actually bothered to use that? I have to take mental notes of everything that's happening now, because who knows what's gonna actually be used. And because of that, it makes us focus on the story a lot more. The one thing with these kind of TV shows, with these kids shows, is that you need to have a strong balance of comedy, action, and story. And it's not always like an even split between all of them. Some episodes are going to be more story, some episodes are going to be more comedy. Like the very beginning, they did a lot of comedy, get you into it, make you feel comfortable. Then near the end, it was a lot of story, okay? Near the middle was a little bit more action, actually. But usually it's per episode, you need to have a balance of all of these. And they did a really good job at that. Even during the time when near the end of the season, when Raela, Caelen, and Ezrin were in the middle of really trying to save the dragon egg, and they didn't really have time to joke around because their issue was much more serious and they can't joke around. They joked around a little bit, but it was heavy. You could feel like this is a tense issue. So what they did was they had Claudia and Soren over there hunting them. And instead of them, because Claudia and Soren had their own, hey, I might have to kill my brother, hey, I have to kill all the kids, this is not cool, you could see their personal struggle. But instead of making it to where, with Caelen's group, I'm making it to where, oh, super serious issue, and then with Soren and Claudia, ooh, super serious issue, it was instead Caelen's group, super serious issue, and Soren and Claudia, yeah, they got a serious issue, but they're just comedy. They're just a comic relief. They're a delightful distraction from the issues that Caelen is having. The one thing that kind of threw me off when I first saw this show, when I first saw the trailers, was the CG. You see CG in kids shows nowadays, or really in any animated show, and you're like, not sure if this is gonna be good. Especially with how this is kind of an anime-esque style. Like with Korra was very anime-esque. I mean, some people just say Korra is anime, which is understandable, pretty much is. But this one has that Avatar vibe from it. I mean, literally book one, season 1 is book 1. They're ripping off Avatar. When I saw the CG animation, I'm like, ooh, is this actually gonna be good? There's a lot of shows where they use CG animation and it's terrible. The animation was really good. Like, really freaking good. I had no issues with it, except for the frames. Everyone notices the frames. What was with that? I mean, was it just they needed to get things done faster and so they cut the frames down so that way everything could go faster? Because it was off-putting. But after you watch it a while, after you get through the first episode, after you just accept it, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, with the slow parts, like with Raela sneaking up behind Caelen and bobbing up and down, it's not a smooth action. It's dun 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 dun, and it's off-putting. But at least the fast, fighty action scenes, they don't suffer at all because they don't need as many frames. I hope they fix the frames by the second season, but if they don't, I'm not actually complaining that much. I don't think the frames are that big of a deal. I do wish it were more, but I can live without that many frames. So in the end, if you ask me, did I like it? I liked it a lot. Am I invested in the characters? I am. I like them pretty well. Do I want to see more? I definitely do. I am excited for season 2. I don't know when that's coming out. I don't know if that's coming out, but if it does, I'm gonna watch it. The only thing I worry about now is how fast the internet will destroy the show with all their ships. That's everything I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay beautiful and keep playing.